Welcome into the WCS Coaches Show. I'm your host, District Athletic Director Patrick Whitlock, and our game of the week is a big one, the Battle of the Woods, even though that name is somewhat up for debate. Brentwood at Ravenwood, and I have the two respective head coaches, Clint Finch from Brentwood and Ricky Rodriguez from Ravenwood. Gentlemen, thanks for being here today.
Always fun to be here.
Thank you, Coach.
So I just I did some research on the series. It has been probably one of the most competitive series in Middle Tennessee, if not the biggest rivalry we have in Middle Tennessee right now. But Brentwood leads the series 13-12, dates all the way back to 2003. In the postseason, Ravenwood leads the series 2-1. Brentwood has won 2 of the last 3, but Ravenwood has won 3 of the last 5. Longest win streak in the series, 2009 to 2012, 4 in a row for Brentwood, which was followed by a 3-game win streak, the longest for Ravenwood, 2013 to 2015. So, Coach Finch, you have been on both sides of the rivalry, kind of, a 2-year stint at Ravenwood, correct?
Yes, sir.
Remember that well? It was great working with you, and obviously I've got a little history here too. Talk about the meaning of the rivalry and maybe kind of how it's evolved over your long tenure at Brentwood High School.
Well, and I'm like a lot of people. When I came to Brentwood in 06, and this is kind of the way I think it goes with rivalries, I get there and everybody says, we got to beat Ravenwood. And I'm like, sure. Like, I didn't really understand the history of it with it opening up from Brentwood High School. But it's just turned into a lot of fun. It's turned into one of the a balanced rivalry, right? It's fun because, you know, going into each year, any team could win it. In fact, in the time I've coached in it, I've been in there in years where the team that should have won it didn't, you know, and I've been there for upsets on both sides of it.
Right.
But it's just it's a lot of fun, and it's just, you know, it's in a community like Brentwood where people kind of expect success from their schools and from their athletic programs. It can be a high pressure game, I understand that, but it's just a lot of fun to be able to coach in. I think it's a lot of fun for the kids, a lot of fun for the community as well.
Yeah, if anybody is new to the Williamson County community, when Ravenwood was open, it really relieved overcrowding at Brentwood High School. A heavy Brentwood influence at Ravenwood with Dr. Vaden being the only principal to this point at Ravenwood High School. She was a Brentwood person before, and then I run into lots of parents where their kids go to Ravenwood, but they went to Brentwood High School. So Coach Rodriguez, not as deep into the rivalry, at least yet. What are your thoughts on this rivalry? What does it mean to you?
I was talking to our players about this morning. I think my welcome to Tennessee high school football moment was 2 years ago in the first game that I experienced in the Battle of the Wood over at Brentwood, and the game day setup, right? I mean, the student body's there an hour and a half before the game, and then we walk out for pregame warm-ups, and I mean, I look up to the stands, and Coach Teddy Craig is standing there next to me, and I'm sitting there bug-eyed like, wow, this is what high school football in Williamson County, you know, is all about. And it's special. My family loves to be a part of it. I love all the pomp and circumstance surrounding the game, you know, and then obviously the 48 minutes in between the lines is always some of the most competitive high school football that you get to see. So I'm super excited to be a part of it and have the opportunity to walk side by side our players and take the field. It's an honor and a privilege. So.
Now, back when I was AD at Ravenwood, there were always shenanigans around this game. I know our students snuck onto Brentwood's field one year and painted the goalposts red. Yeah. It was chipped off by Coach Sigenthaler before kickoff. And then the following year, the Brentwood students returned the favor and drove Bruin on our field. So it was always a high security week. So a lot of tension all the way around. Coach Finch, is there in particular game that sticks out? I mean, maybe it was from the 2 years you're at Ravenwood or vice versa, probably more of a Brentwood feeling, but anyone that sticks out in your mind?
No, when I go back, there's just been very few blowout games, and so there's a lot of great memories there. I will tell you, 2023 was a lot of fun for us. We had a really good football team that year, and we had to play Ravenwood in week 10, and then turn around and play them in the third round of the playoffs. So to kind of get to experience that atmosphere, you know, within a 1 month time frame was really fun. And I also tell everybody, like when I was at Ravenwood in 13, and we held on and beat Brentwood when I was coaching at Ravenwood, I have fond memories of that too. And just to be honest, it's been one of the best things for my career to probably be on both sides of this thing, because because I really appreciate the job that all the coaches at Brentwood and all the kids at Brentwood they got to coach, the job they did, and I appreciate the time I was at Ravenwood with those coaches and those players and the good job that they all did. And I've kind of got to the point where I don't like rooting against anybody because I know how hard both of these teams work and the expectations that both these teams have. So I just hope it's going to be a really clean game and a lot of fun for everybody.
So your predecessors obviously have very deep roots in this game. Coach Crawford, obviously a central figure of Brentwood football in general, and then Coach Hester, obviously a big part of Ravenwood football, also a Brentwood high school alum, just to throw that in there, on the Brentwood staff previously. Have you guys talked to those guys this week? Had any conversations with them?
Ron called me Sunday and just basically wished me good luck, and he said, always enjoy it, have fun with it. That's one of the things I tell our kids, like so many kids never get the chance to play in this atmosphere. Like I always want them to appreciate how unique this is. There's a lot of kids that might play before 500 kids is the biggest crowd they ever get to play in front of. And so to play in this atmosphere where there are, 6, 7, 8,000 people there potentially, right? It's just pretty special.
Absolutely.
Yep, I haven't had the opportunity to talk to Coach Hester this week, but I mean, I know he's obviously thinking about me. Coach Hester's done a really good job as the season has progressed. As he told me prior to me taking this job, like, hey man, I want to be as hands off. If you ever need anything, you can reach out to me. So I know he's supporting us from a distance, but I would not be surprised if the big guy is in the building on Thursday night. So.
No doubt. So here we are again, last game of the season, essentially regular season region championship. It seems like this is just a recurring theme in this rivalry. So both teams undefeated. Obviously, we've had great seasons for the programs. What has made your season so successful to this point? Coach Finch, we'll start with you.
Well, I think number one is that I've been really proud of how our kids have hung in there. We've had rough patches during this year, and we've had some times where I think we were really good during this year. And we talk about all the time about you need to be really kind of balanced and staying in the middle mentally. You can't get too high or too low. And I think there have been multiple, I lost to a really good BA team, lost to a really good Page team, and lost to a Henry County team that's going to turn out to be a pretty good, probably a region championship team. And I think kids can get down when things don't go well. I mean, we were 3-3 at that point in time after Henry County, and those kids never got down. They just continued to show up and work. And we talk a lot about that's kind of the tradition of the place. Like when it's good, you show up when you work, and when it's bad, you show up and work. And when you're in one of these stretches where you're just not very consistent, you just keep showing up and working and keep getting better. But I think that's the most important thing about this year's team is just how well they've handled highlights and lowlights. And we also said at the beginning of the year we wanted an opportunity to play for a region championship, and they never really lost focus of that. And here we are going into the 10th game of the year, and they've given themselves that chance. So proud of that.
Coach Rodriguez?
Yeah, I think for us, I mean, it starts with the players, right? We obviously have a senior-laden football team, and just the leadership by those kids, right? I mean, I know us coaches preach it all the time, right? We want a player-led program. And, I mean, they are the definition of it. I think if you look at our first 9 games of the year, we've won in every way possible. I mean, getting down early, in slugfest defensive battles, having to travel and go out of state on the road and having big victories. And it's because of those kids' experience and leadership, when a lot of those kids got the opportunity to play as sophomores in 2 Battle of the Wood games, right? And then last year going to the semifinals and losing a tough game against Houston. All of those experiences have helped, our kids that when they're in that moment, the majority of them have had that experience before. And then the second thing is like my coaching staff. I mean, most times that there is a coaching change, you get a influx of new additions on the coaching staff, and we kept pretty much everybody from Coach Hester's staff, and I mean they're unbelievable people. I went into this year understanding that I'm probably going to have less of an X's and O's and football role to being more of a manager of people, and I mean I truly believe that we have one of the best staffs in the state, and so you put a combination of the senior leadership and the great football coaching staff that we have together. That's what's led to our success this year.
All right, so Coach Finch, you guys had a big game last week. Beat Independence 16-14. That game starts out, Independence goes right down the field, scores.
Right.
You reach into your bag, a little trick play there that running the first play, wide open Caleb Shin. I mean, no one was in 20 yards of him to tie it up. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, this is going to be a shootout, and this probably favor Independence. And then you guys settled in and took care of business to solidify your spot as a 1-2 in the region. What are some of your thoughts on that game? How has that kind of solidified you going into this week?
Well, when Coach Blade and I were here last week, we talked about how it was going to be a close game. I think Scott's coached it enough of them, and I coached it enough of them that we were like, this is going to kind of follow a script. And it wound up being the close game, even though there was a lot of scoring in that first, 2.5 minutes. Everything kind of settled down after that. But probably the best thing was that our kids, we were able to run the ball pretty effectively in the first half. It kind of came down to a lot of big moments in that game. The biggest, obviously, at the very end when Turner Weber gets through and gets a hand on the field goal that would have put us down to get it blocked. It went to the very end of the game with Indy, trying to throw a Hail Mary to beat us, and we kind of knew it was going to go that way. It's just that's kind of the script that Brentwood and Independence goes through. Again. I told the kids going into it that, listen, this is going to be a long night. Like, it's going to be a 48-minute ball game. Don't think that 47 minutes will win this for you. And it was a little prophetic, I guess, in hindsight, because it went down to that last 7 seconds to hold on and get a win. But just really proud, again, of kind of a microcosm of the season. There were some really moments where we felt really great about ourselves. There were some moments where we really did not feel very good about ourselves, but found a way to win at the end. And I tell the kids all the time that when it gets kind of ugly and it gets tight, you've got a really good record in those situations. So just hang in there, keep fighting, keep finding a way to play to that last snap of the ball game. They did that, and we came out with a win against what I think is a really improved Independence team over the course of the year.
Now, Coach Rod, been a couple weeks since you've been tested. I guess you'd have to go back to the Indy game where you trailed at the half, but beating Shelbyville and then Coffee County pretty handily. Is that a point of concern because this game is going to be more competitive than those? At least that's the expectation on paper.
Yeah.
Does that cross your mind a lot this week?
No, because, obviously you take every opponent, and I don't think anybody prepared me, for the rigors of county play, Coach just hit on it, right? You talk about every game in county is going to be a dogfight, and not that I didn't think of that, but when you get in those moments against the Franklins, the Independents, the Summits, and Shelbyville and Coffee County made some plays in the 2 contests that we played against them. That they are really high-level competitive football programs. So we're preparing as the same as we always have, and I having coaches on my staff that have coached in this game, way more times than I have. We know that a Clint Fitch football program is going to come in extremely prepared, and obviously you combine the rivalry aspect. We're extremely excited for the opportunity to take the field against the Bruins on tonight.
Now, it's not going to take some inspirational speech, 15 minutes before the game to get your kids up for it. But do you worry about the kids' motivation? You kind of spoke earlier, Coach Finch, about trying to keep them even keel. How do you handle emotions this week? Because, as big a game as it is to the programs, when you factor the community in and the parents, sometimes the parents are the ones that blow this out of proportion getting into it. So do you address that with your team, or you just kind of let it go?
I think it's not just us in Ravenwood, and I've said it when I've on the show before. Anytime you play a Williamson County game, the tension gets ramped up. It was that way when we played Franklin and Indy, and it doesn't matter. And again, that's one of the things I think makes it a cool place to coach is that there's great in-county rivalries. We do talk to our kids a lot about there's a lot of noise that comes with this. There's a lot of people that don't play the game getting really, really highly invested in it. And that's fine. That makes it a lot of fun. But we go, if you get wrapped up in the noise, okay, if you get wrapped up in everything that goes on outside of that 48 minutes on Friday night, you're making the other team better, And I think, again, it's one of the reasons why when I go back and I look at the series, at least since I've been in the county from 2006, I think it causes some favorites to get beat sometimes because you can get too wrapped up into that. And you got to focus on the main thing, and it's 48 minutes of football, and only the guys on Ravenwood football team and only the guys on Brentwood's football team get to play that game.
Yep.
Right? Everybody gets to talk about it, but there's only a certain number of guys that get to play in it. Keep the main thing, and yeah, there's no fire and brimstone speech needed for this one, and especially, and when the biggest thing I tell them too is like, I get it, it's Ravenwood, but it's a region championship, okay? And there's only so many teams that get to sit there and put that plaque up on the wall. So, like, keep the main thing the main thing. We said we want to be region champions, let's be region champions. If that means that we have to go through Ravenwood to do it, that's just who we have to go through to do it. Focus on what we set our goal to be.
Yep. And we've talked a lot about this week the difference between playing with emotion and playing emotional, right? I happen to think that playing with emotion is good, right? But it's emotional decisions that have an impact on the game that end up hurting you. And I've been pleasantly surprised this week, at least internally within our football program, at the lack of talk about, the outside stuff, right? The barstool stuff or things taking place outside of what takes place in that locker room, So, and I'm sure coach is the exact same way, So coach said it, keep the main thing. I think our kids are so focused on the mission, right? Which is going in every single week as prepared as possible and taking care of the opponent regardless who it is, right? Could be your cross-county rival. What I like about the rivalry as well is no matter what, at the end of the game, these kids are going to come together. They're going to shake hands, and they're probably going to go out to Waldo's or something together. And they've grown up playing together in the Blaze program or other sports. So it's one big family in terms of Brentwood, as far as I'm concerned. So people can talk about the outside noise and all that stuff, but coach hit it on the head. At the end of the day, in those 48 minutes, it's going to be those 200 plus kids, in the programs that are going to make the biggest difference.
So I would say the biggest contrast in this game, if you weren't familiar with these two teams, the impression of Ravenwood is explosive offense, a lot of weapons. The impression of Brentwood, stingy on the defensive end, always very well coached in that area. So what are some of the key matchups you guys are looking at in this game?
So I think, number one, when we're on the defensive side of the ball, knowing that, and we're well aware, trust us, we've got a lot of film, very explosive guys on defense, and that's either two of the quarterbacks and a number of receivers, and an O-line that we think is really good for them as well. I mean, we think they can obviously throw the ball, but run the ball really effectively as well. And it gets to be coach speak, except it's not coach speak. It's you've got to limit those big plays, especially in a game like this where emotions will be high. You've got to sit there and understand that big play can kind of flip the script in a hurry when you're on defense. So the idea of getting them on the ground, limiting their opportunities, not getting beat deep, not giving up any big runs. I think that's been one of the big focal points for us this year. They're going to pick up some yards, okay? And it's just make them show that they can drive the ball. Don't let it go all bombs over Baghdad on you and just sit there and let them air it out on you all night. But that's been a big focus point for our defense. I think offensively it's just going to come down to hold on to the ball, keep getting first downs, find a way to get into the end zone. Again, a lot of film on them, really good defense as well. And so just as coaches, put our kids in the best position possible, okay, for them to be successful. And then when those kids get that opportunity, they got to go out and execute it. And it'll be a challenge. We're not going to sit there and shy away from the fact it's going to be a challenge, but we also feel like we've improved as a football team. So we want to be a challenge to them as well.
Yeah, and I think for us, right, preparing for the Brentwood Bruins, everything starts at the line of scrimmage, right? I mean, having the opportunity to coach the offensive line for, 3 of these games previously, right? The things that they do from a defensive front standpoint has caused us fits sometimes, right? So getting our offensive line to understand like all the movement and things like that Brentwood does from a defensive line standpoint, we just got to do our job, right? Trust our rules, trust our scheme. And they're going to make plays, So it's staying consistent from an offensive line standpoint and then creating pressure up front, with the things that we do defensively. If we allow their quarterback to sit back there and pick us apart, I mean, that's what they're going to do. So I think everything begins and ends on the line of scrimmages, right? And then I think what I have learned, watching a lot of their film and watching coach over the last couple of years, is they're always going to do something a little different that they maybe haven't shown, in previous matchups. So that takes time out of our practice schedule, right? Preparing for things that we have seen in previous years, and then that takes away on what we want to do and what we want to focus on. So it's tough game planning for Brentwood, and we always know that they're going to be extremely disciplined. So maybe some of the things that we've got away with in previous weeks, we're not going to be able to get away with those things tonight. And then obviously I think special teams is always going to play a factor. Field position, we can't allow big returns. They have some explosive players back there in their kicking game as well. And, so we have to limit those opportunities in a special teams capacity. And then obviously, winning the turnover battle. We've struggled with that, this year. We've always, for whatever reason, at some point in the game, dropped the ball or made a bad read and thrown an interception or done something that has allowed life for that program that we're competing against. So we need to shore up those things because, it's all those little things are going to play a factor in tonight's outcome.
So, we've got some high-profile guys that play in this matchup. Brentwood, it's Emerson, Strang, Merrill, Allen. For Ravenwood, it's Chance, Babalola, Pollard, Matthew Anderson. Lots of high-profile guys. I think a lot of times this rivalry, it's somebody you don't expect that's going to step out and make a play. So who could some of those guys be tonight for you guys?
Oh, goodness. I think probably I would say last week we have a freshman, Parker Cates, that we pulled up, and he had a couple of big catches, good runs for us. He'll get some opportunities on Friday. I think, Caleb Shin had a big play last week, but Caleb could be a guy that could become really important to us. Again, especially one of the things we tell Gavin is when we are a spread football team, you've got 4 or 5 receiving options. So find the guy that's open. So if they do a good job covering Jones and they do a good job of covering Emerson, then there's a good possibility somebody else is going to be open. So, Caleb Shin, Dylan Jackson, Ross Hendricks, just a lot of guys at the receiver core that when they get their opportunity, the ball gets thrown to them, we need them to step up and make a big play.
I think for us, kind of the story, behind the scenes in our season and our success also is those unsung heroes, right? You have guys like Cy Longley, right, who are replacing 2 guys that are currently dressing out on Saturdays for, FBS football programs in Donovan Starr and Ben Hubbard. And what that kid has done, these first 9 weeks of the season has been great, right? And kind of his partners in crime in Cruz Kelly and Taylon Vaughn. Like that, those 3 kids coming into the season, I didn't think we had the expectations that they had for themselves, and they have completely exceeded those. So that's been incredible. And then on the defensive side, right, we have basically one two-way player in our program, and that's Lucas McCollum. That's a kid who, plays pretty much every snap at guard, right, and then he'll play on the defensive line. And he doesn't get the recognition that he deserves, right? But it's those kids that in games like this end up making a big difference. And I think from the secondary standpoint, what Sawyer Akers has done, and I've spoke a lot about him in other media publications and things like that, but that kid's one of the hardest workers in our program. We got a lot of other defensive backs that have gone through the program in the last couple of years that have went on and gone to college and have got the recognition, but that's a kid that if Sawyer Akers isn't out there on the field, we're not 9-0 and playing for a region title. So I look for all those kids to play, a big factor. And then, who knows, maybe a Carlos Guerra field goal or, the touchbacks, is something that has played a huge role in our success as well. So he can boot it, and I think he'll definitely play a role in tonight's game.
So I think I know the answer to this next question. I think both of you will dodge it. But from a basketball background, you get towards the end of the season, we usually closed with Brentwood when I was at Ravenwood. And then there's a possibility you're going to play them twice in like the next 12 days if things play out a certain way. This year, different playoff format. You would not see each other until the semifinals because of how it's it's out there. Obviously, this game could go a long way as Antioch could end up being the number 3 seed in that other district, and they've been a dangerous team all year. But with that being said, knowing there's a possibility and a decent possibility that you could play again in the semifinals, do you approach this game a little different? Are you going to experiment with something? Are you going to hold back? I did as a coach. I might show something just to take away practice time, as you alluded to earlier. A little different when you're playing it that close. But, I mean, that Thanksgiving weekend, this could be happening over again.
Well, first of all, if that guarantee us that we plan on Thanksgiving, I think both of us would take that deal in a heartbeat.
That's
so,
right.
I mean, neither one of us would be complaining about that. No, I think, honestly, and it's just, I think you got to win this one. I think it's just a big deal for both of us to be home. Whoever the winner is going to get to be home through the playoffs. I talked about last week, if you come in second, you talk about trips to Memphis, maybe multiple trips to Memphis, and you don't want to do that. So, no, I think we'll pretty much throw the kitchen sink at them this week and try to win it, and we'll cross our fingers, and I'd be happy for the Bruins and happy for the Ravenwood Raptors if we get a chance to see each other on Thanksgiving week.
Yep. No, the same thing. I mean, in my mindset, right, like this is the start of the playoffs, right? It's a region championship game. I mean, everything that we have been working for since January is on the line this game, right? So we're treating it as such because we also know what that does in terms of getting those home games throughout the playoffs. And then obviously your number one goal as a head coach, at least mine, is always to win the region championship first, and then everything else kind of takes care of itself. So we're going to empty the clip this weekend, and that's how we're approaching it.
And I think one of the things that makes this thing so challenging is we're both playing next week.
Yeah.
And so however this thing goes, you've got to turn around now in the playoffs in a win or go home situation, and you got to sit there and go back to work on Monday regardless of what happens.
Which is going to be tough because it's going to be an emotional game regardless of how it plays out.
Yeah, after 2023, our next game was Cane Ridge, and I still remember the coaches going, I don't think we can yell this game because they're so quiet.
Yeah.
Coming off the Battle of the Woods kind of deal where it's so loud. So that's always actually a concern I have too, is like, okay, that one's over, win or lose. We're into the playoffs, now you got to win or go home and get those kids to stay focused.
I think if there's one thing that I would like to change going forward, it's been tough for us this week. I mean, that one less day of preparation, preparing for an opponent like Brentwood, like you have to cram a lot of things. I mean, I feel like we walked off the field on Friday night last week, and then, we sat in the office for a couple hours, and then Saturday morning we were right back to game prep. I always like that 24-hour, big college football fan, coach. So I was like that. Yeah. I was like that Saturday breather where I couldn't park my behind on the couch and watch some games, and we couldn't do that this week. I mean, Sunday was basically our Monday, and so on and so forth. So having to cram all of that preparation into less time playing an opponent like Brentwood, it's been tough this week. So hopefully we did everything that we could, and we'll find out here in a couple hours.
Well, gentlemen, really appreciate you guys being here. I mean, to me, this is what this rivalry is all about. I know you guys got busy schedules, so thanks again for being here.
Always glad to show up and get to talk about our kids.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Good luck.
All right, get there early tonight, 7 o'clock kickoff, the WCTV game of the week, Brentwood at Ravenwood. I sincerely hope, with no disrespect to Independence, that you guys get to experience that Thanksgiving Day practice and get to line up against each other again the day after. That would be a fantastic story.
Cool.
But it all starts tonight. It's going to be a great game. Get there early, and if you can't get there early, join us on WCTV. Have a great weekend.